And we're back. Welcome back to Film and Game Composers with our review of Strezov Sampling's Oracle. Alright, so we left off, we had a look at the interface and how it affects the sounds, and we've heard some of the sounds as we've done that. So, what we're going to do is just have a quick run through some of these patches and some of the standouts, for me anyway, and some of the pretty cool things that you can do with them. So, we've got these categories. We've got ARP, atmospheres, drones, horror, lead-ins, percussive elements, percussive loops, percussive sequences, reverse selections, sound effects, synth, tonal elements and loops, tonal hits, and velocity. All right, so let's just go through some of these categories. So ARP, these are arpeggiated sounds. Let's put in some kind of a random thing. So we've got Dance Fever. So obviously we have some of these sequencers will be engaged in these kinds of presets. And we've got all these numbers, says 1, 2. So that's pretty cool. And keep in mind, any of these presets can be changed in any way, so... Like, so some of them have the mod wheel already mapped to the cutoff. And if I put that up. So yeah, lots of good stuff that can be done. For example, you got Power Core Pulse, which sounds like this. And again, the mod wheel is engaging the cutoff. So yeah, we got some really nasty stuff like Bit Screamer. And here, of course, we got 4 keys, so let's just put something kind of wide. So you can play some pretty cool stuff there, and as usual, you can change it. That's the beauty of it, is you are not stuck to these presets. So we got something like Deja Vu, and keep an eye on these numbers because they'll tell you what keys are how many keys you probably need to trigger. So it's like. And of course, you can change it. You can always change it. What else do we have? Chuck Spy. So some of these actually. This is a sequence here. Okay, so they've got. This is a different kind of sample. So you got 1, 3, 3, 4, 2, 4. So let's just engage 4 keys and see what happens. And they might not sound different. So if I turn off the arpeggiator, you'll just hear each of them. This is one of those samples. You'll find them in a different folder. There's a different version of this is separate and doesn't have all the filters engaged and everything. And what it is just it's a loop that's been cut up, and then you can trigger each of the slices. And these key switches down there, they just change the tuning of it. So obviously these they've already done something here. So you engage any 4 keys is going to be okay. So there you go. So you can get kind of some pretty cool sequences this way. Now, for something different, got something like this called Matrix Echo, which sounds like this. So see, over here it's actually got 8. So it's engaging 8 kind of thing, which can be an octave or you can just spread them out. So I'll just play, I don't know, 4 on the bottom, 4 on the top. Now see, as you can see, this is very different. This is kind of the piano sound with the attack kind of messed around with, and there's not much of a filter engaged. Is there a filter? No, there's no other sequencing happening. But, you know, it's not all just chuggy, kind of all synth and hard and everything, you know? So if I just engage a whole octave, it's pretty cool. Let's randomize it. Pretty cool stuff. So it's not all about, you know, heavy stuff. That's the beauty of sound design. It can be anything. Let's see what this is. And the beauty here is you can get into a triplet feel. And so there's a lot to be able to choose from. Now, if you see, like, the mod wheel is engaged for many of them, but also here, some of these patches actually have MW written, which means the mod wheel also works in them. I don't know why there's a distinction. So here we got some nasty stuff. 1 1 1 1. So there you go. So those are some of the presets that are in there. I'm trying not to go to everything. You got 4 of them. So this is some pretty cool stuff, and you can hear some of these effects happening. If you can turn off some of these effects and look at that massive reverb, for example. So yeah, so there is a lot to play with in these arts. Okay, atmospheres. So these are more atmospheric. That's the problem with this sound design stuff, is that it's very hard to narrow down. So it's kind of sits in the background. It's really nice. I can be tonal, quote unquote tonal, to an extent, but it inherently has its own kind of shifting, moving character. And some of these have mod wheel linked to them, which doesn't necessarily control just the filter. It's probably set to control something else, which I haven't looked into. It's actually, I think it's going between 2 different groups. Yes. So it's messing around between 2 different samples. So you got something like Feed the Beast. Yeah, they're messing around with two different samples. So you could get some pretty scary stuff in there. Just would fit right into the TV show Constantine, you know, with all the demons and all the exorcisms and everything. So yeah, some of this stuff is pretty heavy. You got something like hull breach. So, as you can see, we've had a very wide variety of stuff just looking at the first two categories of patches, and that's the thing. This is one of the things that this library seems to be shining in, is that it can fit into anything. Now, any of these atmospheres, say for example, what is the Sentinel? Something like this, right? We run it through the sequencer, volume sequencer, for example. We've already got something cool here, and I think like the ARP wouldn't work as well. Like it is be kind of very choppy and you can't hear anything because it's got a slow attack. But you say if we've got the volume sequencing and we run some pan sequencing through it. And we're done. You know, got something cool there. So that's the beauty of the interface, is I'm crafting all these sounds right from the get-go. Anyway, let's look at some drones. So, some drones, some stuff to lie underneath. And this is a bit more tonal. It's still atmospheric, but it's more tonal, can sit underneath a traditional instrument. And you can use it as an instrument if you want. So yeah, well, see, something like this is pretty nasty and thick. So you can do some pretty cool stuff on top. Growling ambience. And then run it through some filters. Maybe just automate that and mess around with it. Run it through a sequencer. And there, you got your sound in. Run it through a couple of effects. You're cool. You're golden. You've got something cool to go with. And then you got some stuff that's really kind of playable, like this one. You know, something like that. Can get the attack happening kind of slow. Something like this, and then you can just sing some Greek chants on top of it. Christos anesti ek nekron. Stuff like that, and then just add a whole bunch of reverb to it. You're done. You're done. So what I'm saying is there is a little wide variety of sounds. And it can fit a whole variety of different things. And it doesn't just have to be film music or TV show or video games. It can be other stuff if you mess around with some of this funky kind of sequence. So yeah. Now, the thing I'm realizing, I suppose, is this. It's very hard to put this library into an element of of it sounds good or it sounds bad, because it is very much down to taste because of the diversity and because of the applications that you may be using. So that's the thing you're going to have to decide about the library is, does it conform to your taste in music, your taste in your composition, and the projects you're working on, right? And seeing as there's a large potential for shaping these sounds, I would say it can work on a lot of things. So it really is down to taste. I can't tell you this sounds good or this sounds bad. This sounds good to me because I can see the potential of these sounds, or a lot of these sounds. Some I may not. So I suppose that's the caveat with this kind of thing, is it covers a wide variety of things, too wide to be able to pin it down. Anyway, next, horror. So horror is horror. Just imagine this with some really kind of weird ambiences. Just mix it up with one of these drones and play something really kind of bittersweet, or something even kind of like a children's song. It'll sound creepy with that, right? That's like... you know, something like that. So I got some black corridor. A whole bunch of sound effects that work well with demons. And a bunch of impacts. So here you got the impacts going forwards. And these impacts going backwards. Oh, sorry, down here. And again, just run some sequences. That's also pretty cool. Just does the job. All right, lead-ins. These are some things that'll transition for you from one part of a track to the next. A lot of them are these reverse things, or they'll lead you into silence. Some of them are just these quick swipes. Some of them are a bit longer. And some noise whooshes. There's just some pink noise. Running through some filters and through some amps. Some envelopes. So yeah. Now we got percussive elements. This is a great section of the library because it is very diverse. Has some organic percussion, has some electronic percussion, has some ensembles, has a whole bunch of things. So electronic percussion, you got something like the analog kit. Just like, you got something like some of this kind of stuff. It's kind of old school. Of course, you can mess around with it, and so some pretty cool stuff. Some pretty cool old stuff. You got a TR-808. Which is, done. You know what I mean? You got some glitchy kind of stuff. You can do a whole bunch of things. It's like, that kind of thing. So yeah, like in some more stuff. So it's a whole bunch of electronic stuff. Then you got a bunch of kind of acoustic real stuff. metals. So got some booms. This is kind of like somewhere in between, because it'll be probably some acoustic stuff mixed in with some electronic stuff and really heavily processed. I think it's mixed in with a bit of reverb. No, it's not. That's actually part of the sound. So yeah, so you got some pretty cool stuff there. You got something like the bucket drum, if I put it. You know, you have a mini drum, and these are definitely running with some reverb. So these, it's not just about big stuff, it's also about this tiny stuff, you know. And you got some a large ensemble like this. Now there's no round robin, but there's enough variation on each different key. So you know what I mean? Now that's great, except I really wish there was a round robin kind of thing where I could just perform a couple of keys that are, you know, go around the same drum, as a lot of many modern samples are done. That would have worked, I think, and I think that's something I would maybe like to see. Maybe an extra patch, just like large ensemble or round robin condensed, something like that, because they do have something similar to that in some of the Slammers performances, but you know, but the sound itself is great, so you could do you got some cymbals there, so some pretty cool stuff. These are the Slammers. So I suppose these are the kind of things you can just put into a trailer, kind of things like. You know, now these are pretty cool. There's a performance patch, which does a weird thing. Kind of comes with round robin, but with panning and pitching and filtering and all that kind of stuff. So that's pretty great, but oh, where are we? So it's pretty great, except I mean, it's not consistent. So I wouldn't be relying on it as a consistency thing. I'd be relying on it as a performance thing and as a fun thing, and maybe I could record the output and then have that audio file as a consistent kind of thing. So yeah, you got different variations, and you've also got some toms. So see, we've already got a very wide variety of percussion right in this folder. So got whoosh impacts. Drop it in and mess around with it and you're done. Warehouse metals. This actually is pretty cool as well. But also one of those patches I would have loved to see a round robin for. Even if you just collect those samples, those like those 3 different samples. Even those 2 samples, just put them on one key kind of thing. And then it'll be kind of more natural to play. But since naturalistic isn't the aim of the library, it's hard to fault them. I would have wished so. And I'm saying maybe what I'm asking for is an updated patch that does that. I mean, I could probably compile that myself if I want to, but I can't be bothered myself. But that's fine. That's just my thing, right? So yeah, so that's percussion. It's a lot of stuff in there, and I think that's probably the about half the value of the library is those percussion elements. Now, percussion loops and percussion sequences. The sequences are those elements just already crafted into sequences. So like booms, for example, if you look at the ARP sequence, just play a whole octave. So it's mess around with the filters and mess around with the ARP sequences. Something like dark noise pulse. Just press one key. So like fast sizzle. That needs 8 keys as well. You got some hats. You know what I mean? The grungy thing is actually pretty great. Inside the tower. That we need 4. So that's pretty cool. Like, what is it? What's the actual sample? Snips. Yep. So it's got these little snips from the percussion loop. So this is whatever was in the percussion elements just organized into all these different kind of sequences. You know what I mean? Something like this. Just play 5 keys together. You know, and it's pretty cool, and you can always edit those sequences as you wish. So those are the percussion sequences. Percussion loops. So you get one patch, which is like a menu, so you can go through all these different patches. So you get a whole bunch of things, and these are to make it halftime or double time. So halftime, these little key switches over here, and double time. So there you go. So that's pretty cool. Now, obviously, if everyone just dropped in loops and that are pressed with one key, everyone would start sounding the same if they were all using this library, which is why it's great that each of these loops is presented as a separate patch. So, say for example, I'll take one of these. I think it was this. Yeah, this is like one of the big electronic loops, right? The green key just triggers the loop like it did before. Each of these is a slice. So I can reorganize it as I wish. It's like, I usually like working with it in the piano roll, so I'll just put it in and just edit in by hand and do all that kind of stuff. So, you're not limited by what they have provided. And that's pretty awesome. Like, there is a lot of potential in these loops. And even if I just triggered the loop as it is, put in the sequencing, put in the volume, maybe even just put in some of these. Immediately I've got something different. Filter. And you got a pan sequencing, so. And I don't need to do the ARP sequence. Actually, ARP sequencing would be interesting on this. Suppose I was to do this. Of course, I can just reset this whole thing and make it 1, 2, so. Just 2, 1, 2. Oh, sorry, 1, 2. If I go, there I've created a different one. And there we've included the ARP sequences into all these loops, even if I did it this way. The pan sequence is only engaged once any of the other sequences are engaged. So there you go. There's a whole variety of things that can be done with this. In the same vein, you get some of these loops and the tonal elements, but we'll show you those in a sec. So we got some reverse selections. So some of these other patches are reversed. So some of the impacts are reversed. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Even the kits, well, one of the kits is reversed. Of course, you can reverse all of these yourself if you start going under the hood over here and start messing around with them. Actually, here it's just a reverse button is engaged. So there you go. Don't even need to work on it. So that's some pretty cool stuff. The horror one will be pretty cool reverse because, you know, reversing in horror is pretty standard. And you mess around with them and you're done. So sound effects, just a whole bunch of different sound effects. So this is what I'm saying is this library has a diversity of stuff, a whole bunch of things. This is a sequence actually. So 8 as well. Of course, turn it off, and you got access to each sound on its own. A bunch of different sound effects. And these are just some random sound effects. Of course, start messing around with those. Puts in. There you go. So that's some pretty cool stuff over there. The synth category is pretty deep. So before I get in, I'll just make that last. I'm not going to go way too much into it, but I'll just show you a few things. You got some tonal elements. So you got some like acoustic hits, which actually this has some round robin. So I got some pretty cool stuff over there. So this will respond very well to sequencing, actually. Even fast sequencing. And yeah, so you got some pretty fun, look, just pretty random stuff. So a faux sitar, which I think they might be using the same sample. Yep, acoustic hit. That's it. Just run through a bunch of effects. And actually, yeah, one of the things they're doing is with the insert effect, they got some really cool, like a bunch of IRs. Some of them are you know, spaces, a whole bunch of different halls and stuff. And the other ones are really kind of special effects. So you can engage either of them and come up with some change to the character of the sound, which I think I was demonstrating before in part 1. So yeah, this was one of the ones we saw in the sequences, but this is the original version of it. So it's actually a guitar. And now, once you start messing around with the pitch, it starts sounding sampled because you can really tell. Especially when you've heard the original. Which can be counteracted with a bit of the filtering. if I put it up and put the filter down. And yeah, so there you go. So this is pretty cool, but this is the thing. If you're not going to go for realism, because this is not the point of the library. So it's fine, you know. Anyway, so some more loops, but these ones are a bit tonal. So again, you have these key switches to change them. You got the green key switch to actually trigger the loop. Oh, it's right here. And then you got all these slices. And if you change the keys, you know what I mean? So it's pretty cool. Some pretty cool stuff that can be done there. And some of the guitar stuff is pretty sweet. You got BM, which is beat machine. So this guitar bend is pretty sweet. And if you go back to sound machine, it'll sound more natural. Just sound like more like a guitar, but this will sound more electronic, which may be what you're going for. So that's pretty cool that they're giving you the option. Now, one of the cool things you can do is tune it up, put the filter down, and then just mess with the distortion maybe a little. Or mess with the saturation actually. Put the EQ up, and you know, you can do a whole bunch of things there. So, see, even if I'm just triggering that loop, I can still do a lot with it. So that's pretty awesome. This is a thing that I always hear the argument about, oh, if you're using loop libraries and all that kind of stuff, then you're not really composing. Loop libraries have been around for years and years and decades, and people have still been very creative with them. Even if you're just triggering it and just messing around with the effects, you've already got something unique, something that maybe no one else will be able to have. And it really depends on how far you want to go with it. So a loop is only a loop as far as you make it a loop. I don't know if that makes sense, but I mean, a loop can be something other than just what it is. So we got tonal hits. There's a whole bunch of... these are actually separated out into patches. There's a master patch right here. So here a bunch of like, this is almost like Brahms, like, you know, those Inception Brahms. Those trailer kind of sounds. So you can maybe trigger some of them together. There, you're done. There's a DFD version, which means that the offset won't work because it's to save on RAM, it's streaming from disk rather than loading it to memory. So here, for example, you can change the offset, but you can't do that over here. Just doesn't do anything. So yeah, so you can separate all those out into patches and then just play them because they're laid on the keyboard. In the master patch, you'd have to change the key with the red key switches. So that's what it is. So there you go. Velocity, these are risers and downers. So you got a menu of downers, of custom downers. So these are the kinds of things you can insert maybe after you've hit a new section and you want to kind of break it down. you know. So it's all pretty cool. And then risers is like you're leading up to a high energy section. You know. And again, just put on some, maybe with the downers actually it works nicely. Put on some volume sequencing. And then put on some effects and then you're good to go. So they've also got just some sawtooth and sine square triangle. Just your basic synth waveforms as downers and risers. And it goes sine. So yeah, so that's pretty cool. So that's, yeah, velocity, because that's about, you know, you're kind of changing the feel, you know, how fast or slow it feels when you break it down or when you speed it up in a piece. Now the cool thing, before I just show you the synth category, is that this comes in OpenWAV formats, which means you can access the files, the WAV files from the library straight, drop them into your sequencer. So here, for example, in Cubase, you got the media base. So I just browse to Strezov to where I've got the library, get Oracle, and under samples, I can put any of the samples of the library in here. So say, for example, any of the downers that we just heard, right? Can have a listen to them here. Okay. This one's pretty cool. So maybe we'll put this one here. And I'll just, yeah, put the volume down. And we can edit it here. We can just start playing with it here. You know? I can actually reverse it so it becomes a riser. Something like that, you know. I could start chopping it up and you know, resampling it somehow, time stretching it, and maybe even pitching it way the heck down. So maybe pitch it down an octave and start sounding like this. And then I insert my own effects on top of it, just maybe just. So we're doing this externally. And it's great. And this can apply to the loops as well if you want. You know? So do something like this. And there we are. We've done our own thing. Where are the loops? Percussive elements. Drum loops. There you go. Non-organic loops. You know, I think if you set these to musical mode in Cubase, it would happen. I have to find it here and tell it to musical mode, tell it it's 60, and now you can just stretch it, like it'll stretch with the tempo of your project. So that's pretty cool. So you can, because they've given you the tempos in the names, so that's pretty fantastic. You can just click. And I think Ableton Live does this automatically. So I haven't used Ableton Live, so I don't know, but it seems to do that very swiftly. Anyway, right, last category. So this is the great thing. The thing about the WAV files is I like to be able to do that, and then I could resample it into my own project and do a whole bunch of different things with it. So I'm not beholden to anyone else, you know. So the synth category, it's probably the biggest one in there, and holds a whole bunch of things in there. So for example, you had one of those that piano-esque sound. Oh, sorry. And of course, like everything, you can turn on the sequence and mess around with it to your heart's content. Contrast with a fat saw. Meditative fifth. What is the actual sample? That's just a pad. You know? Pretty sweet, and can always be edited because you can always play filter. And apply a bunch of effects and reverbs and delays and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty sweet. Gentle waves. Bells. And you got leads. What else you got? We got something like strings. String syndicates. And got the filter here. Turn on the growl, which is mapped to CC1 as well. Scary monster lead right here. So, wide variety of stuff in this synth category. Slapping the bass. Sorry. Bass players are just about to kill me now. So yeah, popcorn bass. So yeah, this is what I wanted to show. One of my favorites, and one of the more pleasant surprises, the synth hurdy-gurdy. Have a listen to this thing. I'll put on the legato as well. Put on the glide a little bit. And put the legato. Put the velocity response down. Now, sounds okay. Once you start playing with the pitch bend, you just give it that tiny little shove, and it becomes a little unstable, like the sound of the hurdy-gurdy, like in the TV show Black Sails or something, or Da Vinci's Demons. So if you play with Black Sails on this. It's just, you kind of make it sound unstable, and it takes really well to it. And the secret here is in the insert effects, they've changed the character of the sound with one of the impulse responses, but I'm not sure which one. So I'll have to experiment with that and try to find that. Because if I turn off the insert effect, it's actually just a sawtooth wave. So, as you can see in the mapping editor, once you put that reverb in, and it's wet, it's 100%, like 0% dry. I could play this all day. I love this. It's like, so yeah, that was some stuff from Da Vinci's Demons, if anyone was noticing. So, has a lot of things. Here's some pads, some more pads. Kind of atmospheric. Do stuff like this. And sounds like a broken. Huh. It's just a triangle sawtooth wave. Triangle wave, sorry. Synth wave. Now, you got some pretty funny thing here. The brass lead fifths. This is kind of cheesy. But it's from these classic synths, you know, because that's some of the things that they sampled. This is what I say. What I mean when I say this is so down to taste. Is someone else might listen to this and see the potential. I mean, you could probably play around with it in a cool way and, like, I don't know, like, find a way to sequence it. Just to be. You know, could do something like that. If you turn off the legato. It kind of, because it is a classic synth, so it sounds like a classic synth, which is pretty cool. But then you can still distort it beyond recognition. Change this with. There we go. We've changed it, whatever that was. You know, that classic synth into something different. Stick another big reverb on it externally, and you're done. So this is one of those things this is what I'm talking about, is the fact that it is really down to taste, and the sounds are all great and have a lot of potential for change, whether within the Oracle interface or outside of it in your sequencer as WAV files. So I think I'm going to leave it there. I've taken up a lot of your time, so thank you for listening. Thank you for sticking it out with me. I tried to make this shorter than usual, and it still took up some time because there's a lot to talk about in this library. And a lot to talk about for $175. It is very comparable to the price of the Project Alpha and Project Bravo from Hybrid 2, which is, you know, the same kind of thing, same kind of idea, hybrid synth sound design, and comparable pricing. I'll say it's comparable quality because Project Alpha and Project Bravo are some of my most favorite libraries in hybrid sound design of all time. So this comes in on equal footing. Honestly, it's a different aesthetic, which is absolutely the point. It's Casey Edwards' aesthetic, and I enjoy that. I very much enjoy what he has done, all the stuff that he's crafted, and all the control he's given us as composers and end users in the interface, and this collection of sounds he's provided that work in a whole bunch of different genres. Or, you know, if you don't want to put yourself in a genre, you can just create your own genre out of these sounds and mess around with them. So that's fantastic. I think it is definitely a lot of bang for the buck. Like if you're gonna buy one sound design library, you have a hard choice, or I have a hard choice. You know. What else is there to say? Some of the negatives I have is I wish some of the percussion samples, where there's a lot of similar samples, I'd love them to be grouped into new patches with round robin playing, just so they can kind of combine well with some of our other percussion sample libraries and maybe some natural percussion that we may record. So I think that's probably something. Is there anything about the interface I would change? No, the growl is great, and the velocity, the offset control is great, and all the effects and the sequencing, pretty sweet. I really don't know what to tell you. Maybe the only thing I would ask for an update for is more sounds, because that's really all you can do at this point. I think is, hey, here's a whole bunch of new sounds that I've recorded and created and processed and just thrown in as extra content, or that could be an Oracle 2.0, whatever tickles the developer's fancy. So I hope this has been helpful and informative, and not taxing and not too long on you guys. And hopefully you've enjoyed it, at least, and you've come to some good conclusions, or at least come closer to some good conclusions about what Oracle is all about, and have listened through what I've played you, what I've tried to show you. So even if you don't agree with what I'm saying, you can listen for yourself and make your own decisions. This is half the reason I do these as video reviews, because I think it is very valuable to be able to hear this stuff in the hands of someone who didn't develop it. Not that Casey's stuff was not very effective, because it was. I'm just saying, and as an added perspective. So yeah, so there we go. I will leave it there. Thank you so much for your patience and your time, and I will see you guys on the next one.